Hey there, guys. This is Flamzeron, aka YouTube's Tasuke, and in my quest to go through all of the Monogatari stuff that I've missed, because I'm actually super behind and I actually enjoy the series, even if what I say about this particular entry leads you to believe that I'm not, maybe. But I'm still a bit behind, though. I'm closer to catching up now since I don't have to watch these long fucking movies, which is funny considering like the next thing I have to watch is like the first movie because I know that came out. But at any rate, I watched and finished Tsukimonogatari. Um, um, I believe the chapter title they give it is Yotsugi Doll, because I know they always they name each like arc like after the chapter from what I can under from what I the chapter of the books I mean. Um, and as you can tell by the title and the picture that you see, which I got from Crunchyroll, because that's where I watched it. It focuses on the doll chick, the chick who's always like, "I said it with a poised look," or whatnot. But I watched it. It was another one that I don't know if it was like this deliberately or not. I doubt it was aired that this way anyway. In fact, I think it was deliberately done this. I don't know, but basically, like, it was put into like one big movie that was like an hour and 30 minutes. Um, but and it was done pretty. It was done in a decent. Well, I feel like you can tell when each episode started. It was kind of like Hana Monogatari. Um, though truthfully, I actually like this one better, both story wise as well as character wise. Um, some reasons are pretty obvious because I'm pretty sure I've noted that my favorite character is Shinobu. I think she's awesome. But yeah. So yeah, this one it follows Koyomi and Shinobu and Yotsuga. This I feel like here it you know Koyomi, and for those who don't know what I'm talking about, I'm talking about Araragi, the protagonist. I'm probably gonna start calling characters by their first names when applicable, just because it's a lot easier, unless I don't know their other name. Um, like certain characters, I'll probably call them different things, but yeah. And it starts off with Koyomi. I'm gonna kind of try to trim down the story synopsis just because one, I've noticed that I'm not really good at explaining certain things that isn't Dragon Ball or Tales, but and Saint Seiya, I guess. But anyway, so they're just kind of doing their thing. Karin goes for a jog. It's like, prepare a bath for me, brother. Oni-chan. Do me the butthole. She probably doesn't want. I don't know, but Tsukihi, I think her name is, the Phoenix chick. It's funny. Oh, I call it. Of course, this this little, and my from my perspective, it was basically a movie. Though I imagine if you watched it as it came out, whether or not you're watching this from Japan or if it was subbed, if you watched a fan sub and it was done this way. But they do make reference to her, the whole Phoenix thing. But I also know her as the Phoenix thing from uh Nisei Monogatari. But she's all like, we're gonna take a bath. I'm like, Koyomi's getting ready to fix up the bath, and he decides to take a bath. Suki, he is all like, I want to take a bath, and they're like, well, I want to take a bath. And they're like, okay, well, let's take a bath together. And then they bang. No, they have like some. They do their little thing, and like the whole incest thing starts to come into play. Um, and there was a Super Saiyan joke that I thought was kind of funny. He's like, "Yeah," and it's funny because like the hair looks like Astro Boy, or I don't know if it's necessarily Astro Boy, but it's like don't make it sound like I'm a Super Saiyan or something. Like, lols, Super Saiyan is cool. And I only said Saiyan just because they say Saiyajin, obviously, since they're Japanese. I don't know why that's important, but and while he's washing Tsukihi's hair, he notices that he doesn't have he doesn't have a reflection in the mirror. He's like, "The fuck? Am I a vampire again?" And so he calls out Shinobu, and she's like, "Shinobu, what the fuck?" And she's all like, "Well, you might be turning into a vampire." He's like, "But I'm not sure. You need to talk to somebody. You probably shouldn't talk to Gaien. Is it Izuko or Izumi? I think it's Izuko. Izuko Gaien. So talk to fucking Kanegui and Yotsugi. I'm pretty sure her name's Yotsugi. I might actually double check that. I'm gonna artfully go to the Crunchyroll page while I'm talking. But yeah, so like I think Kanegui gives Koyomi a text, and so they end up meeting up, and they do all these little tests, and they basically deduce that he's not a full vampire, but he's becoming close to a vampire because he's turned into a vampire so many times. What with taking the blood from, I don't know why I went to YouTube. not that what I'm doing while I'm recording this matters to you guys, because I usually just look at the picture. But anyway, and they deduce that he's getting close to turning into a vampire because he's been doing it so much from like taking Shinobu's, or having Shinobu drink his blood. And, what's it? Yotsugi, yeah, it's Yotsugi. All right, just wanted to make sure. Recently watched. Thanks, Crunchyroll. Anyway. And they're all like, okay, well, and it's like, well, can I turn back into a human? And Yotsugi says no. But what you can do is stall your, like, prevent you from going any further. It's kind of like, sort of taking care of something before it takes full effect. And it's like you can stop your progression, but you have to stop using your vampire powers and Shinobu and whatnot. And while they're saying all this, like, Shinobu's actually looking away, and I sort of like that. Not that I'm at the necessary review part yet, but I liked that because it kind of showed that she sort of knew sort of what was going on, or that she understood what it meant, because she wasn't really sure, so that's why they had to talk to Kanegui and Yotsugi. But and then this fucking Tadematsu, I think his name is. I know his first name is Teori Tadematsu. I think he's like this doll master guy. He ends up kidnapping Kambaru, who's the basketball chick from the series, as well as Tsukimonogatari. She's the monkey paw chick, and Karen and Tsukihi. He kidnaps all of them, and he's all like, and Koyomi's like, we gotta fucking rescue them, but I can't use my vampire powers. Oh well, guess I gotta use Yotsugi. Hi, Yotsugi. I'll start with a poised look. Unlimited rulebook. But I don't know. Anyway, and so they go through, and like they have to go like through the mountains. Like they have to do it in a very stealthy, sort of tactical way. Because in the past, usually what had happened was that, truth be told, Koyomi tend to rely on other people. He's always sort of relied on other people, I think. Be it usually Shinobu, but he's also had, I think, Senjo Gahara with him, and I think at one point Karen also helped him because she's a martial artist. But yeah, so basically their plan is Koyomi to be a decoy while Yotsugi goes in and tries to find Kambaru, Karen, and Tsukihi, and then she's gonna do her unlimited rulebook to like get away. And Yotsugi, she brings up the alternative, like, oh well, maybe like if you offer me, like he'll let them go, or maybe if you offer Shinobu, he'll let them go. And of course, she also reveals that the doll guy, I'm pretty sure it's Tadematsu. I don't remember. I know he was voiced by Takahite Koyasu, who also does, Jade and Tales of the Abyss and Dio and JoJo. I thought he did a pretty good job because it's you could tell that it was him doing his like typical voice, but there were some times where he kind of dipped out of it, mainly when he spoke kind of quietly. And I thought it was kind of cool because it really showed that he was he was playing a character rather than being an actor playing a character. It was more like he kind of became the character, and I thought that was kind of cool. And so they do the little planet first, but and this also kind of ties into the beginning as well, because one thing I didn't mention is that the beginning part, it's sort of like this, I don't know, it's not really a monologue. I guess it is sort of a monologue with Koyomi and Shinobu kind of chimes in where they're talking about Yotsugi, and they're talking about how like, oh, a monster is only a monster because humans call them as such. Like, and Shinobu's all like, I'm only if I wasn't called a vampire, I wouldn't be a vampire. Like the idea of like society kind of, I'm going to kind of get to sort of like the presentation of some of these ideals, because I feel like there's a bit of an issue with this entire series that I've kind of had it on my head for a while. I don't know if I mentioned it in the Hana Monogatari review or not, but yeah, and so they talk about, and that's sort of like just a beginning thing. This thing has a lot of focus with the Yotsugi, but basically what ends up happening is that she I think there's a bit of another reason why she did this, because it turns out that Kanbaru, Karen, and Skihi were actually inside like the this like offeratory like bent, like the shrine things where you throw offerings into Tadamatsu or whatever his name is, Teori. I think it's either Teori or Teoru. I don't remember this guy's fucking name. He's the doll master guy. The doll master guy. He's throwing like these. He's like rapidly doing these origami things and throwing them into the thing. And Kanbaru, Karen, and Skihi are actually in there. And I think that was part of the reason why Yotsugi chose to do this. But what she ends up doing, and this was something she thought about as well, she's like, oh, I could use my unlimited rulebook to just kill him. And Koyomi's like, no, don't do that, because that would be very inhuman of you to do. Which is, and it's sort of, it's suggested both in how Yotsugi reacts when Koyomi's all like, I'm gonna lift your skirt up and look at your vagina. Really looking at his undies. Because she's all like, I don't like it that you're doing my skirt up. It's kind of, I feel like I'm going to catch a cold. And it's like, but you're a doll. You can't feel it. Like, I know I can't, but I feel like I'm going to. And she talks about, like, just because I'm a doll doesn't mean I don't have shame. And sort of the idea that she still feels the same kind of things that a person would, even though she's a doll. In the beginning, how, where she was like, Yotsugi doesn't necessarily want to be a human. She just wants to be together with humans. The idea that she wants to be accepted, But but then like what ends up happening, and so like basically I kind of lost my train of thought, but yeah, so that's sort of like she basically like she kind. I get the impression that she kind of doesn't care at this point. Especially considering since she has like this blank expression, it's kind of hard to read her anyway. Read her visually, emotionally. I mean, like you can get how she feels based on what she says, and obviously her emotionless is used as humor as well. But yeah. So basically, to kind of go back on track, because one, I lost my train of thought, and two, we need to stay focused. But basically, Yotsugi kills the doll guy with her unlimited rulebook, and they all rescue the peeps. And again, I think part of it was because she figured out that they were there. Because then it's like, okay, well, if they're basically under the guy's basically guarding them, so he needs to be defeated or moved. And she figured, okay, well, we'll just do my thing. And she talks about like, I'm sorry I didn't go through your plan. This is something I decided on my own. And he's all like, and she's all like, I did it because I'm a monster. I can do shit. It was sort of interesting thing because it's almost like she was saying like I did the monstery thing for you so that you didn't have to do it. In a way, I don't think that was entirely her intention, but yeah. And then it also happened on Valentine's Day, so like or it happened the day before Valentine's Day, so like the next part, Koyomi goes to fucking Senjo Gahara's house and she's all like, I'm girly now. Well, here's a stapler. I'm gonna fucking staple your mouth, or staple your mouth. And then it ends with Yotsugi actually being inside Koyomi's house. He's all like, and she's pretending to be a doll, and she's all like, I'm gonna help you now because I'm supposed to. I don't remember the exact reason. I'm recording this like I think I'm recording this like the day after I watch it on Friday. I don't know when I'm gonna upload it. Probably like right after. I'll probably upload it right after recording it. So take my viewpoint as you will. I've had some time to kind of digest it, but I also have had time to not remember anything. And I didn't take notes. I thought about it, and I didn't like do any writing of notes because I felt like any of my points that I really needed to make I would remember, and I do remember them. And also, but I also, this was actually kind of strange for me. I went back because I felt like there was stuff I missed, so I actually went back several times and like rewatched scenes because I'm like, oh, am I actually getting everything? But yeah, so to put it simply, Yotsugi is now with Koyomi. So Koyomi has like another buddy along with Shinobu. And her scenes were pretty funny when she was wearing the black dress and she was sitting on the throne. And I took a screen cap of one of her funny faces in that one where she's like sort of sobbing a little bit. It's kind of funny how like one of the reasons why I like her is just because of how interesting she is. How like when we first see her in Bakemonogatari, she's very sort of like timid and she's always quiet and whatnot. Then like in Nisei Monogatari, when she actually talks and does shit, and she even looks a little bigger. She's more talkative and whatnot. I don't know. She's cool. I like her. She's definitely one of my faves. And and I'm curious about the other because I understand the pun or the joke with her name, Shinobu, because her original name is what? It's like Kiss Shot, Acelerin Heart Underblade or something. And it's spoken in English, and I think it's a translation joke. I think I'll have to see kind of how the movie does it. But because I've read this on the wiki, but apparently the kanji that is used for Shinobu's name, it looks like they took the kanji for blade and put it over heart, so it's literally heart under blade. You'd have to look at it, and I looked at it. It did look similar, and Shinobu. It's a cool name. I wouldn't be surprised if like Kiss Shot whatever ended up being like just Oshino, because I'm pretty sure she takes Oshino's last name, who they're still trying to find. It's interesting, but yeah. So that's the basic story as far as I remember it. Honestly, I liked it. I liked sort of the idea of Koyomi having to confront, like, almost becoming a vampire. And I especially love any sort of, like, interaction with Shinobu and Koyomi. They're very much They're very much partners. Like, I think at some point it implied that I think in Nisei Monogatari, when they had sort of, like, their big episode, it was implied that they might have been in love or something. I don't know, but I feel like I kind of get more of like a partner in crime kind of thing. I think that's kind of cool. I like them, and I really like Shinobu. She's it might be Negima fever because she's basically the Evangeline of this franchise, but she's so cool. I actually think Shinobu is a bit cooler than Evangeline. I think she was inspired by Evangeline, actually. I think Shinobu was inspired by Evangeline. I'm not sure. Kind of like how Kurama, the nine-tailed fox, and Naruto was named after the Yu Yu Hakusho character, and how Naruto was designed off of Super Saiyan Goku. But anyway, um, I did like it. Like I did like the story bit and like the whole thing with like the whole Koyomi becoming too much like a vampire and potentially turning into one, because I felt like it was sort of a good way of one, putting a limit on him so he's having to do some of the stuff on his own and grow, but also it just advances the plot a little bit more, because it just seems like it almost kind of seemed like they were just fighting a new enemy each time, or dealing with some new thing, but it just kind of seemed like it wasn't really like coming back to anything, I guess. I just liked how it seemed like the plot seems like we have something more to work with here, and I'm it'll be interesting to see what Tsukimonogatari, which I know is like the latest TV adaptation, which I still need to watch. I think it just concluded. It'll be interesting to see what that does, and I know there's also a web animation. I think that's currently the one that's going on. I imagine that it's probably going to be on Crunchyroll like really late, because I know this franchise, they tend to wait a long time to get it. But anyway, I did like it. I sort of took issue with the I think this is more of a general complaint with the entire thing, and I think this is also part of, and by thing I mean the entire series, and I think this is also partially because I do have the Tsukimonogatari novel that was published by Vertical in English, and I read the first chapter. And Anime News Network also talked about this in their review, and I agree with them. I read the review before. I took I looked at their positives and negatives thing that they always do, and one thing they noted was that it seemed like the narrator Koyomi sort of went on these tangents, and I agree, because even with the first chapter, and you know, judging a book by the first chapter probably isn't a good thing, but like it was just like these pages and pages of like, and I might try to read the rest, or I might just watch the movie, but you know, there was just so much it was just like there was just so much like internal thought, which you would think from a writing standpoint is really good, but I feel like you don't want to overload the reader with all these like internal thoughts, especially if it gets to a point to where like you're not even really making a point, which I feel like is sort of what comes into play a little bit with this, like with the beginning part with Shinobu talking about how like, oh, you know, I'm only a vampire because people called me a vampire. I'm paraphrasing. I don't think that's exactly how she put it, but it's similar. The idea that like, oh, Yotsugi and people like her who look like humans but are not humans, they don't want to be humans. They just want to be like, they just want to be they want to be together with humans. And I'm like, it kind of came across as like sort of like overstating the idea that, you know, it's really society that's the true quote unquote monster, and that all these like inhuman like people want to do is just be accepted by society and people and live with them, and how it was really society that deemed something that was different and bad. I felt like it was kind of overstated a little bit. Like it was made to be more complex than it actually was, and I felt like the series kind of does that a lot. And like, characters tend to talk in these like grand ideal things, and I feel like sometimes it's kind of hard to follow everything, and that's part of the reason why I went back and rewatched stuff, because one, I wanted to make sure I was paying attention, and two, I felt like sometimes it was kind of hard to figure out. Like I watched this with the review in mind, so I felt like that was sort of, because like I didn't think about that in the show's defense. I didn't even consider the idea like, oh well, maybe she wants to be treated as a human. I didn't even think about it, because I figured she didn't care. And I guess that's sort of the strength of this series. It makes you of this particular arc in the story. It makes you think that a character like Yotsugi doesn't really care about being human, because she's so blasé and emotionless about everything, but she actually does care. She actually does care a decent amount. And I guess sort of this is also sort of seen in Koyomi wanting to be back a human, and he's handling it very well. And you would think like, well, what difference would it make if you're a vampire or not? And you know, Shinobu, I think Shinobu's all like, you know, it's kind of implied that she also like, I don't care if you're a vampire, and she's like, if it gets bad, I'm going to suck your blood and I'll turn you into a vampire. it's doing that thing where if you get your blood sucked, you turn into a vampire. I know for my stories, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have it to where it's a little different. I'm treating vampirism more like a sickness. I don't know why I'm telling you guys about my stories while I'm trying to review another story, but anyway. Yeah, so that was one thing about it that kind of ruffled my jimmies a little bit, or rustled my jimmies, I guess. I just felt like, and I've noticed this about the entire series, it never really bothered me until this one. I think it's just because I noticed it a little bit more. Because I think at first, like, it just kind of went over my head and be like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. But now that I feel like I understand it, it's like, well, you could have phrased that differently. Maybe I was just being an impatient viewer, but and that also another thing that kind of got on my nerves a little bit. It's when they were talking about Koyomi and like the whole vampire thing, and like they're doing the test, like, okay, so yeah, you are turning into a vampire, and like whatnot. It's like, okay, well, how do I turn back into human? And I'm thinking, okay, they're gonna. It might have just been me figuring out the twist or whatever, or me thinking that. I think I was also thinking in terms of context because he's turned into a vampire several times. So he's probably closer. It's not like he's just starting to slowly turn into a vampire. He's pretty far into the vampirism. And Yotsugi ultimately says it's impossible. You can't turn back into a human. But it takes like 4 pieces of dialogue for her to say it. She's like, you see, the truth is, I don't remember exactly but I remember like like she had to give like other pieces of dialogue, and it was basically like just big step, and I felt like just go ahead and say it, or like you can make it a big twist, like if you want to do like the truth is, and then he gulps or whatever, and then he's like it's impossible. He's like no, they could have done that, and like I felt like it was dragged out a little too much, I guess is what I'm saying. Again, maybe I'm just being an impatient viewer, but I felt like it. I felt like I guess my overall complaint with those two minds that it needs to. I think it needed to pick up the pace a little bit. Really, with that one scene, like the thing with Shinobu, I felt like it was a stylistic thing because obviously Shinobu's not going to say like, oh well, it's society. It's like she's not going to necessarily put things super simply, or rather she's going to say it in the way that she would say it. So, yeah, that's my stance on it. I liked it, but it still kind of suffers from the overtelling and over-explained ideal thing, and it dragged a little bit with getting to the point. But it's still very good. It was still very fun. And I feel like the Koyomi vampire thingy was interesting, and that it kind of potentially sets up the rest of the series. And I'm pretty sure we're getting close to the end. I think there's actually one more story that needs to be done. I think there's one more story that's going to be published. I don't know if the rest of the stories are going to be published in English. It probably depends on the sales of Tsukimonogatari. I think I'm probably going to watch the movie. I'm probably going to wait until I've finished Owari Monogatari, which I will probably start pretty soon, because I know the entire thing's on Crunchyroll. But yeah, I kept seeing it on Crunchyroll, like, oh man, I want to watch it, but I need to finish Tsukimonogatari first. But yeah, I liked it. I just those couple things and it didn't even really ruin the experience for me. I just felt like it's like I would have done that differently. That's generally my critique thing. Like, it's not that it was necessarily bad. It's just that I would have done it differently. So, if you are a fan of this franchise and you want to see it, I definitely would recommend it. It's probably a good idea to watch all of the anime adaptations if that's the only way you're following. Like, if you're reading the novels, then yeah, just like pick and choose whichever ones you want. Like, I think my favorites so far are probably Nisei Monogatari and Monogatari's second season. I'll have to see how things go with Owari Monogatari and the film adaptation of Tsukimonogatari, which is being split into 3 fucking movies, and other stuff. But yeah, pretty good stuff. We're getting to the end. I think. I think we're getting to the end. But yeah. This is Flamesron, aka YouTube Sasuke, signing out. See you later. I said with a poised look. I did a funny. Okay, bye. Really?